Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PB Election Podcast. I'm Eshan Pokhrel,
And I'm Mike Bodeker.
and today we are discussing the first presidential debate of the 2024 election. This one was between President Trump and President Biden, and if you haven't heard of it already, I think it might be, in my opinion, I think it was both the worst debate in American history at this level, just collectively, but also from President Biden, the worst performance from a president in a debate in modern American history. And that's how we're going to start, I guess. Bodeker, what were your initial thoughts?
It was both awesome but terrible at the same time. Awesome in the sense of the entertainment value was through the roof. Probably the most entertaining debate ever, probably because there was such little actual substance, especially after the first 15 minutes. I think the first 15 minutes was actually the most substantive of the entire debate. After that, no one really answered any of the questions. It just kind of was I'm going to go back to answer what we talked about the last question.
Yeah.
That was the last hour of the debate. So the first 50, both of their opening statements, and then the first two questions on the economy and abortion, and even some of the immigration. Those were reasonably substantive. Everything else was kind of just a waste of time.
Yeah, and I think actually I do. I was trying to think back because I haven't rewatched it. I don't know if I want to, but I was trying to think back to this the moment where everything fell off the rails. Because I agree with you. The first 20 to 25 minutes, they were actually talking policy. Not I wouldn't say necessarily subs. They were discussing policy. The first section of the debate was the economy. So we went from the economy to tax cuts into abortion rights, and those three questions into the going into the border question, I think we actually had a substantive debate, and I was pleasantly surprised. I was I might not be agreeing with really anything that's being said, but the fact that they're actually discussing the issues is fascinating. And then it just went it went downhill. But honestly, early on, and I think I think that in itself is great because I think we both agree off the start. President Trump came out very well. He came out restrained. He didn't try to interrupt. Of course, the mics were muted when the candidates weren't speaking to each other or speaking in their allotted time, but you didn't see Trump's mouth moving while he was waiting to speak. You could see he just let President Biden talk, and President Biden talking led to disaster last night. You could see instant gaffes. He couldn't remember names. He couldn't remember issues. He'd be pivoting from question to question. I think at one point he was discussing abortion, and he said that women were being raped by their sisters, causing to abortion. I don't know what was going on. It was a very bad start.
At the end of that question too, right?
Yes, there was one where he fully froze on the question multiple times, but there was one really bad 10 second pause. We were oh no, this is not good. And I think it's very fascinating because this all happened at the beginning part of the debate, which is I think even worse for Biden because frankly, the way recent debates have gone, people only watch the first 10 to 15 minutes maybe. If it gets interesting, they keep watching, right? The worst Biden moments happened in the first 10 to 15 minutes yesterday. And I think it really caused concern both within the Democratic Party. You can see they're in full-blown crisis right now, but not to the point where they probably should be at, but also just in the country. I've seen the cultural backlash of this debate has been crazy. I've seen meme pages posting about this. I've seen sports pages posting about this. This has been absolutely crazy. So, yeah, take it away, Bodeker. What are your thoughts?
I think the biggest thing that I saw actually was President Biden claimed that Border Patrol endorsed him. And as of the last time I saw it, the Border Patrol Union Twitter tweeted out, "We've never supported Biden and never will," and it had 170,000 likes. And that was last night when I looked at it. I'm sure it's probably up over that today. I thought that was kind of hilarious. But just the constant bickering, both of them just kind of. I think Trump was a little bit more coherent. He was just more there overall, but both of them just kind of mumbling about random stuff sometimes. And then Biden got really, really mad about, I forget which question it was, but Biden got really, really angry. And when he called Trump a sucker and a loser, Oh, it was the thing about talking about that Trump called the veterans, which I think Trump was probably the more right on that, where I think it was like 19 of his cabinet said he didn't say it, and it was the one.
It was stuff that doesn't that people don't really want to hear about. It was like old conversation. It annoyed. And if you're a supporter of President Trump, but you wanted to see it, like how he performed in this debate, I think you're pleased. But also, there's like those little annoyances. Like he kept going back to these irrelevant questions.
Yeah, and they went back to that same point later in the debate, like half an hour later, and it was just let it go. I don't know why you both have to keep beating on this dead horse. I mean, it's done. Like I don't think anyone cares about it that much. If you're considering voting for Trump, I don't think you actually think Trump thinks that soldiers are suckers and losers. And if you're voting for Biden, you probably already think that Trump thinks that anyway. So I don't think that really changed that spat changed anyone's mind about what either the candidate thinks about veterans. And then I think they went more into that during the child care question, which was left unanswered. So we have no idea on what either candidate thinks about childcare.
Yeah, it's very disappointing. As you went on, I think everybody wanted to hear about the economy. I actually do think Jake Tapper and Dana Bash did a good job. More of the function because they didn't say anything. Like they just asked the questions, and they didn't
push back at all, which actually I think was better because they just kind of let them.
I agree. I agree.
And both of them kind of did get into some falsehoods. But I mean, I think that maybe the moderators decided that that's more for us to determine versus them trying to push back on it.
Yeah, let's get into a little bit of I don't even know how to. The reaction. There was no policy to talk about. Not necessarily. I'm looking through my notes of the first couple of questions where they actually talk about policy. Biden's whole economic push was Trump handled the pandemic poorly. And then he blamed corporate greed as a large player in inflation, greedflation, which actually there's been a lot of economic research coming out that that's really not the case. It's not necessarily greedflation; it's more just general inflation. But then in cases like oil and I believe car sales, those are two big places where greedflation is existing, but not in food and other stuff. So that's actually kind of fascinating. Trump, in the economy question, he said no wars, which is kind of interesting to me. I think he wanted to make that point kind of early. But also, he defended his spending during COVID. He said we spent the money necessary. And he also said inflation is...
And I think at the time that seemed like a very reasonable statement. They did kind of... Now, we can probably looking back on it, argue that there were overspends here or there. And at the time, as we were both old enough, obviously, to be very memorable of the pandemic was just recently. I think we both probably agreed that it was mostly fair.
I think he handled it. I mean, he handled it poorly, but even the fact that he said he's qualifying it and saying he's spending the money necessary is kind of growth, if anything, from Trump, which is something you don't expect to see. And then you go into tax cuts. He defended his tax cut bill. Biden was incoherent during this one. This is where he said the Medicare piece. Where he said that what did he say? He said he's going to beat Medicare. I assume he was talking about
we finally beat Medicare.
I think he was talking about Big Pharma. I hope he was talking about Big Pharma if you're going to beat something. But Trump, this is the one pushback. I guess Trump did a really good job of coming back on his next, right, because this is the end of Biden's part of speaking. And he came back and he said, yeah, he beat Medicare to death. And I think that's the best soundbite of the night, outside of the one where he was like, I don't even think he understands what he's saying right now.
Or the golf. The golf was probably
the golf
best.
was ridiculous. No. But yeah, I mean, but Trump he's just more coherent. He was very restrained, which again I think I applaud whoever was able to get him more restrained, and because I think it paid off really well. And as the night went on, they both got unhinged, but the first 20, 15, 30 minutes of this debate just ruined it for President Biden and has created some super tough questions for Democrats moving forward. There was I think last night was the biggest criticism. Now you can see CNN's Biden disappoints, Trump lies and deflects. The New York Times, after halting debate performance, Biden tries to reassure Democrats. Wall Street Journal, Democrats discuss replacing Biden on the ticket. Politico last night, Biden is toast, the headline. Financial Times, Biden campaign is still trying to stay in, but there's also new articles. Who could replace Joe Biden, the Democratic contender? So this has become an absolute mess, and I think we've both I think a lot of people have kind of seen this coming because he's 81 years old, man. He's 81 years old. he won the election in 2020 without really campaigning. Outside of those two debates, he wasn't really campaigning because of COVID. But also, the fact that he wasn't able to campaign during COVID is more of him being old and not wanting to risk COVID, hurting him. So I think this is just kind of a long time coming. I think this is kind of I gotta point fingers at Democrats here for letting this get to this point, and especially his aides and everybody around him.
Well, and actually, I think one question that pointed out how bad this performance was for President Biden was the abortion question. Normally, abortion, at least since Dobbs, has been a winning issue for Democrats up and down ballot in states mostly across the country. But I think Trump actually won that question pretty handily. He gave a pretty moderate answer in terms of he justified why he thought that the Dobbs was sound, and of course he touts his own Supreme Court justice picks, which I think any president who would have been in that position probably would have done. And then talking about his own position of we want the most amount of people to have the most amount of say in this debate, which is probably the most politically viable conservative-leaning abortion position, is you want the most amount of people to have the most amount of say in that issue. And then he goes on to say that he's in favor of exceptions and stuff, and then he goes and pins late-term abortions on President Biden and ask him directly, like, do you support any restrictions at all? And I think that actually was a winning, maybe the best answer Trump's ever given to a question that I've ever seen, because that's such a sticky political issue for the Republican Party, and the way that Trump answered that, props to whoever prepared him for that, because I thought that was a really good answer from him politically, at least.
I think this is actually closer to more of Trump's personal opinion on abortion. He's a New York Republican. He's not, and let's be honest, Trump is not a pro-life champion by himself. Let's be honest. Like, come on. But he answered, this is the growth I'm talking about. And the fact that President Trump has learned something from 2020 is kind of crazy to me. But he definitely learned to moderate on abortion. You saw 2021, the Senate races in Georgia. 2022, the midterms, Democrats destroying Republicans because of abortion. And then all these ballot initiatives. And he knows that there's ballot initiatives in Florida, in, I believe, Arizona, on abortion in this November election. So there's also that question on the ballot alongside this election. So he needs to definitely moderate, and I think he did a good job. Yeah, I mean, he said that he agrees with the SCOTUS decision to keep abortion meds legal, mifepristone, whatever. Those are recent rulings from the Supreme Court.
And said he would veto anything trying to get rid of that, right? I think he said that too, didn't he?
There was one part at the end where he wasn't able to respond to Biden claiming that he wouldn't. Biden said that Trump would sign a 6-week national ban. It seemed like Trump was trying to get in and say he wouldn't, and because I'm saying that he wouldn't because he recently said that he wanted if there was a national ban, it'd be like 16 weeks, I believe, was the answer he gave, which is a kind of actually a cutoff in Europe. Like if you see like a lot of European countries have a 16-week, 14-week, that's the number they roll with if they have a
and now it seems like though he's probably more comfortable with just the way Dobbs is. He's just going to keep it with the federalism there, which probably is his most smart political move, just staying away from it altogether, but giving a pretty enlightened answer when prompted on it.
Yeah, it was surprising because I mean, like he just kind of scaled back. He was like, I put the justices on there. They did what the legal scholars think they should do. It was actually a very good job of answering. I think he's kind of watching some Trump speak like on abortion. He's kind of he's been trying to get to that point, but he made a really good point on it in the biggest stage.
In my opinion, that was his best answer.
I think so too.
On the economy, probably, and maybe even immigration, I think he didn't articulate it the way that he probably would have wanted to. But obviously, people are concerned about the border, and people are concerned about migration, and especially when it came to like the rights for like minority Americans, like talking about African Americans. Trump kind of said it in a way that was maybe a little condescending.
I don't know what a black job is. Not sure what a black job is, honestly. But that being said, I mean, like after this question is where it really went downhill for both candidates. I mean, Biden was pretty much a solid line the whole time. But the problem is the line was like, he started here, then he went. Actually, no, he started bad because he waved. He came in.
Opening statement was there.
He came in and waved. There was no one there. I don't know what was going on. Maybe he was just used to that. So like, it was bad because he started like really low. I don't think he maybe got a little bit stronger, but like, towards the end, going into the first commercial break, he was a little strong. I think after that he dipped back. Trump started off pretty good actually, and then he just fell off a cliff as well because it became a personal attack battle, and that's not what anybody wants to see really. I mean, it was pretty funny, but nobody wants to see that.
The problem is, candidates far and away have learned that you don't get into a personal attack battle with Trump because he's just going to win. That's just something that he's good at. And I think it did make Biden look worse because then once Trump started basically not answering any of the questions and just going after Biden, then Biden did the exact same thing. And I don't know who told him to do that or if he just decided to do that on his own, but I don't think he didn't actually have any substance to anything after Trump basically lost his substance, and then it was just both.
It was just bad, yeah. And I mean, and there's literally nothing to talk about on the policy after abortion. Maybe a little bit of the border.
There were no major policy proposals. I mean, you think the tariffs? Is that the Trump tariffs?
No, because the tariffs they're both doing the same thing. So Biden continued Trump's tariff policy, and I think there was one point Biden said that tariffs don't cause inflation. Or it might have been Trump. I don't know what the economics they're looking at is. It's very simple. Tariffs, force. I think it was Trump. He was saying that, my tariffs won't cause inflation or more inflation. They'll just protect American business. It's just not true. It's just basic economics. So I don't know what's going on over there. At the same time, I think Trump did articulate his point better. I don't know if Biden had a point. I think it was just bad. I don't know. Let's talk about the fallout. There's no more substance to talk about. It's very sad.
Well, okay. There is one more that I thought was noteworthy. Trump's worst answer of the night, I thought far and away was his answer about January 6th.
Oh, yeah. Oh, true.
I thought that was by far his worst answer of the night. I thought it was a kind of a softball question, actually, for Trump. And I don't think he answered it at all. I mean, he kind of just pivoted into something else. And it would have been pretty easy to just say, look, I don't associate with these people. They don't represent me. They don't represent what I stand for. And I hope that justice is served for all of them. Well, I feel like that's a pretty simple
I think answer. That's simple, but it's fascinating now because the Supreme Court today ruled that the obstruction, limit on obstruction charges for these rioters is much more narrower now. So, there's actually a lot of cases that will probably be thrown out because of the way the Supreme Court has interpreted this. And I assume he doesn't know that, but I think that's another thing where Trump truly believes what he was saying. And that's good. I completely forgot that was definitely his worst answer of the night because the American public don't want to hear that. But he believes it. So there's that dichotomy.
So fumbled on that answer too. He could have gone after him for that.
I agree. No, I don't think Biden knew it.
And then Biden pivots to basically saying if you vote for Trump, you don't like democracy, which I thought was a little bit of a wild take.
Yeah, he called. He said that if you vote for Trump in this election, then you're not respected. I don't know what was going. That's just something that Trump would say. You would think that would be something coming out of Trump's mouth. The fact that Biden has, kind of fell into that pattern is very concerning. Not for me, because I'm not voting for Biden or Trump probably, but for his standing, in his image as what Biden was supposed to represent as the normalcy candidate. Chief. Yeah, the unifier in chief. He's gonna restore the soul of America. That was his whole thing. That was his whole campaign. And yeah, and let's talk about the fallout because there's no other content actually of the debate. The fallout has been glorious because I want the most ridiculous House of Cards election. I genuinely believe. Okay, so first let's do this. Do you think President Biden will be replaced at the convention or before the convention?
If you asked me yesterday, I would say no. If you asked me yes today, I say it's very well possible. And if I say it's very well possible, I should offer a theory. I saw this online, and maybe I'm just spouting conspiracy theory nonsense, but I thought it was interesting that by having a debate after basically all of the primaries are over, you've given people a vote, per se. But now that the primaries are essentially over, once you get to the convention, you don't actually have to do anything with that. The delegates can meet and do whatever they want. The people have had their say, but the convention happens, and the Democrats at the convention say, actually, you know what? This is a waste of time. We're going to go with someone else. Okay, well, if I think they're going to go with someone else, who do I think? And that's what I've been struggling with today before this podcast, trying to think of, who would it be? I don't think you can skip over Kamala Harris. because just of how optically that looks. I just feel like it looks optically bad to skip her. Granted, she would be worse electorally for Democrats than Biden would be, which is crazy, by the way. Honestly, I am almost of the opinion at this point that the only Democrat who could probably beat Trump is Michelle Obama. And we've been saying that probably off camera for months, if not maybe 2 years.
Yeah, maybe 2 years.
Yeah, like I don't think Gavin Newsom could. I don't think Gretchen Whitmer could. I don't think even like Josh Shapiro from Pennsylvania could. I don't think Joe Manchin could. Trump's movement and his persona. Trump is great for Trump's individual candidacy. He's awful for Republicans down ballot. It used to not be that way. He used to propel Republicans down ballot. However, times have changed, and he's a little bit more toxic for Republicans down ballot and his people, per se. So I think Trump, the man, is stronger than Trump, the head of the party, which is why I think if Trump does win in November, it'll be a Trump presidency with a Democratic House and a pretty close Senate, depending on what happens in Montana and Ohio, and even Maryland, actually, depending on what Larry Hogan does. It could be really, really close in the Senate come January 20th if Trump wins, but he definitely won't have the House. The Republicans will lose that. But I think that the Democrats are in a really weird predicament, because I think the one person that would win, I don't know if they have the guts to do it. It's kind of like they could do it, but I don't know if they're strong enough to.
I weirdly don't think so. Okay, actually, the Biden campaign's having an all-staff meeting this afternoon to talk about the debate and who knows what else. There's been so it's been weird because like Hakeem Jeffries was asked if Biden should drop out. So if you're Chuck Schumer, if you're Hakeem Jeffries, Nancy Pelosi, you have no incentive to have Biden in office. He'll be a lame duck. He'll probably die in office. If you're Chuck Schumer and Nancy Pelosi, you have one more term probably. I know Chuck Schumer's done after this next term. You probably have one more term in you before you leave. Hakeem Jeffries, you're not really losing any status if you're the House Minority Leader already. Hakeem Jeffries said that Biden shouldn't drop out. Gavin Newsom said Biden, but Gavin Newsom's kind of a snake, so who never knows. But I think that if he does drop out, I don't think it'll be his choice because he's already said that he's going to stay in and he wants to debate in September, which is the second scheduled debate, which we'll talk about.
After the conventions, right?
Yeah, which we'll talk about more later. But I think that if they do force him out, I disagree with you. I think the only candidate that could beat Trump is Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania because he's super popular in the state of Pennsylvania.
That's true.
He's also a new governor. He's been there for 2 years. He's also like he's a, if you want to talk about like, he'll get the money, like in the sense that AIPAC will fund him. Let's be real. That's what it is. He'll have the money. He'll have the donors. I think he's Jewish as well because his name is Shapiro. He's Jewish. Like he's Jewish. Back. That's what I'm saying. AIPAC will get in with him, but he's also very popular. Like he had that bridge collapse in Pennsylvania that he handled pretty well, and I think that really gave him a lot of credit. Again, he destroyed Doug Mastriano by like 15 points in that election.
Oh, it's not close.
And he's been around Pennsylvania. He was the Attorney General, I believe, before that. I think he was the one that settled the Johnson & Johnson, like opioid epidemic settlements, all of that. He outperformed Biden as AG when he was running for AG big time in 2020.
Yep.
And he's 51. I mean, like, I think Shapiro would do much better with the suburban women vote. I think that
the suburban mom demographic.
You can kind of
like that was the Bush demographic, the Obama demographic. I think Shapiro would do very well with those people.
I think you can kind of paint him as like a Biden in the sense that like from like a very basic, a white guy from Pennsylvania, like in like a very basic sense. I don't think he's anything like Biden. I think he would be a better president than Biden and a much better candidate than Biden currently. But that's who I think they should have to go with. I don't think Michelle Obama's going for president. I do think she'd win. Kamala Harris would probably lose worse than Biden. I mean, Kamala Harris yesterday spinning said that. I mean, she's the first person I've heard admit that the person she's spinning for had a slow start in a debate. She said he had a slow start, but he got much better. I mean, you can't say that. You cannot say that.
Okay, the problem is, though, right, is how do you skip over her? Because you just, like, you almost can't skip over Kamala. It's the amount of problems you would have on your own side would be terrible, because if you skip over Kamala, you kind of do look a bit scummy.
I think it's simple, though. I think they just say, President Biden's very low approval. Yours is not better. Like, you're not doing much better. I think it's pretty simple. I mean, like, I just don't think that. I don't think that they can. It's simple. If they're gonna pull Biden, then they're probably also polling every other candidate. Like, oh, you can't actually beat Trump, so you're gone. That being said, I actually don't think this is gonna happen. I think they're gonna run with Biden because he's super arrogant and stubborn, and all of these leaders that I've been talking about, like Schumer, Jeffries, Pelosi, even like Ro Khanna earlier said that we have a great team of people that will help govern. So basically and I like Ro Khanna, but he's basically advocating for an oligarchy here, which is not, we can't have that. It makes no sense. And that's why, actually, leading into what I was talking about earlier before we started, Chip Roy, the congressman from Texas, has filed a resolution urging Kamala Harris to convene the cabinet of Biden and carry out the 25th Amendment vote to remove him from power. And I mean, honestly, I don't know if that's a little over. I mean, I do think that's warranted because that performance was really bad. But on the sense that, like, everybody in the country, like, however many million people, probably over 70 million people saw that election or that debate on streaming, on TV, whatever. And I think that's the first time a lot of people really saw people, because everyone's like, oh, Biden's old. But people were like, oh, he's like old. And if you're like a foreign agent, if you're like Russia, then like, how are you? It kind of makes a lot of sense how like countries like Israel and Ukraine are just getting whatever they want right now. I don't think they'd get like the funding that they want as much if we had somebody that was actually fighting them and like able to fight them. I know I saw some people saying it's like if you're Russia right now, just you got to go all in on Ukraine. Like what is President Biden going to do? What is Israel? Israel could like carpet bomb Rafah, and what is Biden going to do? Like I think Obama's probably stepping in. Trump might even step in that case. Biden's not gonna do anything. It's crazy.
Or even you like look at like the situation, more hot zones abroad. Like look at the Korean Peninsula.
Look at Azerbaijan. There's so many. Azerbaijan, Armenia.
This has been sketchy.
Even like Ecuador, Mexico, like our own backyard is crazy. It's absolutely insane right now.
Or the big kahuna, Taiwan. I mean, if
Taiwan,
you're the Chinese, right? Like, do you want to risk something like that when Trump is president, or do you want to risk something like that when Biden's president? Because I think that changes the entire calculus of China.
No, I agree.
I would if I'm another country, I'm just this is the one thing I think people give Trump a lot of credit for is his craziness is actually somewhat beneficial in foreign policy because you're almost scared to do stuff because you have no idea what the hell he's going to do.
Yeah.
Like you just don't know, which is why I think he claims that Ukraine wouldn't have happened in his administration. I kind of believe it a little bit, like in the back of my mind, because he's just that kind of loose cannon that sometimes, unpredictability can actually be an asset. His is both an asset and a liability. But if I'm an adversary, I think, not that I'm advocating for our adversaries to do nefarious things, but you do want to strike when you feel like your enemy is weak, and that was what Trump was trying to say, is that we're weak right now, and Biden obviously is trying to pivot. And it was weird because Republicans are a lot of the time seen as like the very patriotic, like America is the best party. But actually, it was almost the opposite last night, where Trump is saying that America is, we're a failing nation, that we've totally lost it, and Biden is the one that's kind of like we're America, like we own the finish line, like and that's usually the shoe is we see it's at least usually on the other foot. But it was just interesting last night to see Biden come out and say, no, we are America, like this is us, and Trump being the one that is having to kind of attack the country, I guess.
Well, it doesn't seem like people want to be in Biden's America right now, and there's no real polling to There was a little bit of snap polling CNN did. CNN did snap polling last night on debate watchers, so not the whole electorate, but 67% of people said that Trump won. 33% said Biden. I mean, if you take the probably 20% that would have voted for either anyway, it's not good. It looks horrible for Biden. I think it is horrible for Biden. But let's move on to the next debate, because there's going to be another debate. And also, let's talk about third parties, because I actually do think if anybody won in this election, or this debate, I think RFK Jr. has much to be looking forward to now. Because first thing, I think it's actually crazy that him, Jill Stein, Chase Oliver, and maybe Cornel West, polling wise, I don't know him. I feel like they should be on the stage. If you're getting any votes in a national poll, I think you should be on the stage, because I think it'd be cool to see like 4 or 5 candidates on there. I think they should be on there. But especially RFK Jr., who was supposedly 15% poll away from qualifying for the debate. It seems like the campaigns were actually promised he wouldn't be on the stage by CNN, which is they're trying to claim like collusion, which actually I think it's fair. I don't think the FEC is going to do anything about it. If he's on the stage in September, and I think he will be, because I think now if you have people seeing these debates kind of baking into people's minds, you go to these polls and you see, or like you hear like the polling come in and you're like, hey, if the election was today, would you select Trump, Biden, or Kennedy? I think people are going to kind of migrate a little bit. I think there might be enough motion to where Kennedy gets onto that September stage. ABC is hosting the September debate. I think ABC will be a little bit more nonpartisan. I don't expect the Green Party, Libertarians, and Cornel West to make the stage, but I do think RFK has a chance to make the stage. And frankly, if RFK is on the stage with those two, first thing, Biden, I mean, I genuinely believe that if that happened, if we get to that point, I think President Biden could finish third in this election. If he's still the nominee, I think he definitely, if he has another poor debate performance, and you have RFK, who is 11 years younger than him, then you have Trump, who's still energetic, even though he's only like 3. He's like still kind of like a person. I wouldn't be surprised to see President Biden finish third in the popular vote, which would definitely be the worst result. And it'll be the first time an independent beats a major party candidate, but also like, I don't think this is like conjecture. I think this is actually very possible.
Yeah, I mean, look at it this way, right? Like, if you're President Biden, you need to beat Trump by, what do you figure, probably 2 or 3 points in the general election. You figure it's probably 2 or 3 points nationally to win the Electoral College.
I think so. I mean, I think Kennedy's presence is going to help.
2 plus 2 for Biden. The problem is right now, as it lies, pre-debate, Trump is up 2. I can't see Biden gaining ground. I think Trump probably gains 2 points on this. So if you're Biden, right, and theoretically Trump is up 2 and he gains 2 from this debate, you're 6 points from where you need to be. That's a lot of ground. That's a lot of ground to cover. And you have to consider that both of these candidates are very well known. Like, this isn't an unknown election where voters' opinions are going to sway super rapidly. But I mean, this is his 3rd presidential election in a row running. This is Biden's re-election campaign. I mean, and both of them are very well-known political figures. Not a lot of people, like if you look at polls, there aren't very many undecideds. I mean, the last poll is 48-44, so 8% undecided. 49-45, that's 6% undecided. 44-44 is a lot of 12%, but that was a morning consult poll of a lot of registered voters. Like a Rasmussen of likely voters, Trump up 9. Quinnipiac, which is a pretty Biden-friendly poll, had Trump up 4. That 49-45. This is crazy. I mean, Trump is doing the best of his political.
And you have to factor the third party. So that Quinnipiac poll, Trump's up 6, Kennedy is 11, West is 2, Stein is 2, Oliver is 1. It gets worse when you put the full picture in there for President Biden. I think it's going to continue to slip. I think we're going to see a little bit of a slip. We have to slip. There's no way we don't see a little bit of a slip.
Look at these swing states, right? Like, let's see how RFK does in Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. Because if RFK, if you presume he's polling probably 65% Biden voters and 35% Trump voters, then, I mean, RFK single-handedly wins Trump, Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, Nevada.
Most recent poll of Arizona, on likely voters, North Star Opinion Research. I don't know who American Greatness is. I think it's a Kennedy. It might be a Kennedy pack, but Biden 32, Trump 42, Kennedy 13 in Arizona. Trump's up 10 in Arizona because of Kennedy's presence, and he's up 6 without Kennedy. It's absolutely it's not
that's
good.
Bad. That's really bad. That's atrocious.
I mean, you can look at states across the union. I think a lot of states, especially now, are going to come into play that haven't came into play in a long time.
I saw something where New York was within like 10 points.
There's actually one that just came out where Maryland, Trump leads by 1. I don't know if Kennedy was included in that poll. I don't know what was going on in that poll, but it was Trump 41, Biden 40. Not sure.
People are saying Virginia's back in play. I don't know how much I really believe that.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think if Virginia becomes quote unquote in play, I think it's 5 points for Biden still. Virginia's voter demographic change has just been so stark that I really don't think Youngkin's win was kind of an anomaly. I don't think that's the trend. I mean, Virginia definitely has trended back towards the right, but I don't think we'll ever see Virginia being as much of a swing state ever again. But like we thought it could be. I think that's a bit overblown.
Yeah, I don't know. This is going to be a mess. The fallout for this is going to be fascinating. I think going now, so now we have the RNC is in 2 weeks in Milwaukee. So I know that Trump gets sentenced a couple days before the RNC begins. That's probably the biggest, the next big piece of news we have coming. In terms of the election, I mean, unless the Biden world just collapses, which, I mean, frankly, I think it should. And I think this might be irreversible because I think there's been points where we've had we've been like, oh wait, there's no way that this guy can be president for 4 more years. 4 more years. Not even just 1 year. But now that it's gotten to a mainstream audience, he had the worst debate possible outside of him just collapsing on stage, God forbid. But we have the RNC in, I believe it's that. I think it's July 11th to the 14th that weekend in Milwaukee. Nothing. DNC in August. Who knows? People are calling for a broker convention. Haven't had one since the last Chicago one, I believe, in 1968, where, by the way, Lyndon B. Johnson saw that he wasn't going to win the election and dropped out. Lyndon B. Johnson, probably one of the most righteous, arrogant people, but also one of the smartest political operators in American history, saw that he wasn't going to win, saw the writing on the wall and dropped out before the convention, and then they ended up losing. But I think they had, I can't remember who they picked that. Was that the year they picked, what's his name? Humphrey?
McGovern?
I think it was Humphrey, yeah. Hubert Humphrey.
McGovern was 72, yeah.
Yeah, Humphrey, then Muskie, I think. But regardless, that could happen again. I mean, who knows? It's going to be a mess. And then we have the debate in September. So we will have Trump. Trump will be there. We know that. Biden could be there. Actually, I would say, this is kind of funny, but I think there's a better chance RFK is in that debate than President Biden is in September.
Well, depending on how sentencing goes for former President Trump, I mean, is there a chance neither of them are there? Is there a chance?
Oh, no, I think Oh, true. I guess they could put him in jail. That'd be kind of funny too. That'd be a mess.
You attended jail?
I'd like to see a prison brawl debate. That'd be kind of cool. Scenery change. But I don't know. I don't know what's going on there. But regardless, not great. Not a good time right now in Biden world. Not a good time in America.
Should we rate both of their performances on a scale of 1 to 10 before we go?
Yeah, let's rate them. Let's start with the incumbent, President Biden. I'm going to give Biden. I'm going to give him a 1 because that was the worst. It wasn't necessarily the performance. It's the pushback and what's the fallout of what happened is I believe it's the worst that could have happened outside of a black swan event happening, which we don't want to see, but I think this is genuinely the worst outcome. So 1 for Biden.
Can I give a negative score?
You can.
I'm not going to give a score. I'll probably give, I'm maybe a little bit more generous and give a 2. Because I think a 1 was just even more incoherent than what he was.
Fair enough, yeah.
The 2 is in like he answered a part of a question okay, and maybe that'll be okay. But losing to President Trump on a lot of different issues that should really could be winning for him if he kind of phrased it the right way. Yeah, it was a failure.
I think for Trump, I don't think Trump had a good debate, but the thing is, it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter. I think I'm going to give Trump a 5 because we've seen Trump has his best in 2016, probably just one of the most, one of the hardest people to debate probably in the country, just because his style. It's not traditional debate, but it works. I'm going to give him a 5 though because I just don't think he was. But the thing is, it doesn't matter. Whatever he said, he could have said anything on that stage. It really doesn't matter. He said some pretty crazy things, but not really. He was able to moderate. He learned from 2020 where he came out too aggressive. He did a good job of moderating his pitch, moderating his tone, waiting his turn, all of that. And I think it paid off. And obviously Biden did everything he could to help Trump. So yeah, 5 for Trump.
I'm going to give him a 6. And the only reason I'm going to give him a slightly positive score is because I think he had more slightly positive. He had more good answers than bad answers. The economy and the abortion answer were really, really good. The January 6th answer was really, really bad. So he had a little bit more positive than negative. I'd give him a 6. He started out at a 10, and he ended about a 2.
Fair enough.
Because that first 20 minutes is probably some of his best work I've ever watched.
Yeah,
the rest of it was kind of a wash, and he gave a terrible answer on January 6th, and he gave just basically non-answers for the rest of the debate after that. So I would give him a 6 just because he gave 2 really good answers and only 1 really terrible answer. A little more positive than bad, but for his campaign, I think that debate was a 10.
I think it's fair. I think, I think it was definitely the best debate we've seen Trump in since 2016, because I guess he wasn't good in 2020, so I think, since 2016. So, but again, that's not the headline. The headline is America loses. The second headline is Biden Biden's facing the most pressure he probably has in his political career, and I think it's at a very pivotal time for us and for this election. So we're going to stay on this. This is going to be fascinating going into the fall and into the convention season. So, any closing thoughts?
Yeah, actually, I want to leave everyone with a tidbit. This day in history, as per RCP, can you guess what the RCP polling average had Biden ahead by on this day in history in 2020? How much was Biden up?
This is June. I would say he was probably up 10.
He was up 9.2 on this day 4 years ago.
That's actually crazy.
Trump was up 1.9 on this day 4 years later. So that's what an 11.1 point swing in 4 years.
Yeah, I think it's not good, and I think I don't think anybody's gonna have. I'm excited to see these poll numbers early from this one. I don't know if it's gonna be the same going into November, but we're gonna see what the actual slide is from this. So thank y'all for listening. This was a lot of fun. This has been an absolute mess of a debate, but honestly, debate nights are a lot of fun to cover, and they did not disappoint. We'll say that Trump and Biden did not disappoint. So thank y'all for listening. If y'all have any ideas for content, let us know. Check the website out. We always got new articles coming. And I'm Eshan Pokhrel.
And I'm Michael Bodeker.
And goodbye.